Good evening. Today we'll be talking about structural transformation, agriculture and productivity growth in India and China. During structural transformation, employment grows rapidly in non-agricultural sector and labor is pulled out of agriculture at a speed that depends upon the labor intensity of the industry and services. Convergence is driven by rapid agricultural productivity growth that allows the reduction of labor input per unit of output. A turning point is reached when the labor productivity differential between the sectors starts to diminish and the share of labor in agriculture starts to decline faster than its share in output. Compared to international experience, India's structural transformation has been slow and atypical, mainly on the account of low share of manufacturing of economy and its disappointing growth and employment performance. At the same time, the share of the agricultural sector in GDP has declined and remaining industrial sectors and services have shown growing GDP shares. Absorption of labor in urban economy has been slow and rural-urban migration has been far less than that could have been expected in rapidly growing economy. Therefore, the difference between the share of agriculture in economy and the share in labor force has widened significantly. The accelerating growth of economy since 1980s did not lead to the acceleration of agricultural growth. And the continued growth of agricultural labor force, labor productivity in non-agricultural sector and agricultural sector has widened in accelerated rate and the ratio now stands to about more than 4.2. Clearly, India is still far away from the turning point and its structural transformation. In India, the intersectoral productivity differential that has been rising even faster, reaching the ratio of nearly 6.6 to 1. The agricultural share in GDP has been declining faster too, but so has its share in employment. Therefore, the absolute difference between the shares has started to decline. The slow decline in agricultural labor force in India is a consequence of still high rate of population growth, that is 1.6% in the last decade, and relatively slow rate of urban-rural migration. Conversely, in China, the population growth rate has now declined to almost zero, and the rural-urban migration has involved around 220 million workers and past 2 decades, and the relatively slow rural-urban migration rate in India is a consequence of low share of manufacturing in economy, which has hovered up to around 16% of the GDP since 1980s. China's share in the manufacturing has stayed at around 33% since 1991. Similarly, the share of industry has grown slowly in India from around 25% in 1989 to around 28% today, while it has been around 46% in China in 1993. The GDP share of services has grown to well over 50% in India, more than 20% above the industry share, while in China it remains below industry share at around 43%. In India, the poor development of labor-intensive manufacturing in particular has led to adverse urban employment consequences. The 1980s were golden years for Indian agriculture when the growth of agriculture, labor productivity and total factor productivity growth were at their peak. Much of the total growth can be attributed to the spreading of the Green Revolution across the most regions in India. Since 1980, the TFP growth rate of agriculture in China has been persistently higher than in India, close to around 3% in all the 3 decades. The TFP growth, like in no other country in the world, has ever shown such a prolonged period of growth in agriculture. This is one of the reasons for faster structural transformation in China. Thank you.